One of the best and most popular Ubuntu-based Linux distributions just released their new version that's based on Ubuntu 18.04. Linux Lite 4.0 was just released yesterday. Let's take a look. So, Linux Lite 4.0. Linux Lite is an Ubuntu-based Linux distribution. It uses the XFCE desktop, designed to be fast, lightweight. You know, it's great on older machines, but it's fine on modern hardware too, especially if you like something that's fast. Looking at the page hit rankings here in distrowatch.com, number 18 is Linux Lite. So Linux Lite has really become a very, very popular distro very quickly. Linux Lite, that distribution hasn't been around that long. If I actually go to the Linux Lite distro watch page, looks like for release announcements, let's see how many release announcements we get. The oldest one dates back to Linux Lite 1.0 2012. So it's been around about 6 years. So it's been around for a little while. Reading the blurb here from distrowatch.com, Linux Lite, beginner-friendly Linux distribution based on Ubuntu's long-term support release and features the XFCE desktop environment. Linux Lite primarily targets Windows users. Interesting. It aims to provide a complete set of applications to assist users with everyday computing needs, including a full office suite, media players, and other essential daily software. So, we've already discussed that Linux Lite, as the name implies, is designed to be light and fast. It uses XFCE. Really cool. But the part about targeting Windows users, I've mentioned in the past that I think the XFCE desktop environment is perfect for Windows users coming to Linux. For those that are switching to Linux coming from Windows, they will be right at home in the XFCE desktop environment because you get your standard panel and taskbar usually at the bottom of the screen, although you can put it anywhere. A lot of XFCE distros usually put it at the bottom. It's your standard taskbar, similar to what you were used to in something like Windows 7 or Windows XP. You have a start menu. That menu has the applications categorized in a sane sort of way. There's no menu that you open up and you get these weird web tile applet thingies like you got in Windows 8 and Windows 10. So a lot of Windows users would be right at home using XFCE for their desktop, and I think they would love a Linux distribution like Linux Lite as their daily driver. So I'm going to go to the Linux Lite webpage here, linuxliteos.com, and go to their downloads here. Let's see what kind of downloads we have. Support them, you guys that are interested in becoming a patron. So supporting them on Patreon, donate a few bucks to them every month, especially you guys that use this as your daily driver, Linux Lite. The devs, I'm sure, need funding. Also, they have options for tipping them, which is great. Right here near the download button, you can tip them $2.50, $5, $10, $20, whatever you feel like giving. But it is always a good idea to donate to the projects that you guys use on a daily basis. Let's see, Linux Lite 4.0, 64-bit, 1.3 gigs in size. 64-bit. Here's an interesting note. When I reviewed Linux Lite previously on the channel, the previous version, they offered 64-bit and 32-bit ISOs. No longer. Ubuntu 18.04 is 64-bit only. Ubuntu is dropping 32-bit, their desktop, 32-bit desktop ISO. So a lot of the Ubuntu-based distributions are also going to drop 32-bit support, 64-bit only. So for those of you with really old machines that need a 32-bit ISO, Linux Lite, unfortunately, it's not going to work for you. You may have to try something like Puppy Linux, which I'm sure is going to always offer 32-bit ISOs. Or you could do the Ubuntu Server Edition. They offer Ubuntu Server in a 32-bit ISO, and then on top of that, maybe install the XFCE desktop or whatever desktop environment you want to install. So I'm going to pull down the ISO. Again, it's 1.3 gigs in size. I'm going to install this inside Virtualbox. Okay, so I've created a virtual machine here. And we have our boot menu here. Let's see if... Alright. So this VM, by the way, I gave this VM 2 cores of my 6-core CPU, and I gave it 4 gigs of RAM. More than enough, actually, to run something like Linux Lite. I probably could have just gave it 1 core and like 2 gigs of RAM, and it would probably still run like a champ. But I like to give these VMs, plenty of power to work with. So 2 cores and 4 gigs of RAM. Now our boot menu here, we have the option of Start Linux Lite, which just boots us directly into a live environment. Start Linux Lite in safe mode, check install media, run memtest, boot the first hard disk, or restart the machine. I'm going to just choose the first option here, Start Linux Lite. If you don't choose anything within a few seconds on boot up, it's going to automatically just start Linux Lite. It's going to take you straight into the desktop environment, the live desktop environment. And running the live desktop environment, sometimes it takes a minute or two for it to launch, so we could be waiting a second here. This would be the same as just booting this off a live USB key. In my case, all I'm doing is just booting directly off the disk image, the ISO. We haven't actually installed anything. Once you actually have an operating system installed, boot up time is very fast. It probably would load straight into the desktop environment within seconds, where this might take a couple of minutes. Drinking my morning coffee here. Always very important to have coffee around. If you're a Linux user, sometimes you need it. And in the evenings, it's always important to have a beer around if you're a Linux user, because trust me, sometimes you need that too. Alright, the live environment has loaded. We have our little welcome greeter here. I'm just going to close that for now. I'm not going to play around in the live environment. All I want to do right now is run through the install. So I'm going to click the icon here for Install Linux Lite. That's taking a few seconds to launch. Alright, and our installer has opened. This looks like the standard Ubiquity installer that Ubuntu uses. English has been chosen for our language. I'm going to click Continue. Right, keyboard, English US has been chosen for our keyboard. That's correct. If I want to play around with the keyboard, I can type something in the little test field here. I'm going to click Continue. Right, we have the option of downloading updates while installing Linux Lite, or install third-party software for graphics, Wi-Fi drivers, etc. Alright, downloading updates. I'm going to go ahead and leave that ticked on because it'll save me from having to update the machine later anyway. This one here is not ticked on by default. It really needs to be ticked on by default. Install third-party software. This is your video drivers, your Wi-Fi drivers, your multimedia codecs for playing, CDs and DVDs, Blu-rays or whatnot. You really need to have both these ticked on, but especially the second one, install third-party software. To get a proper desktop experience, you really need those proprietary drivers and multimedia codecs installed. Right, the computer has no detected operating systems. That's because this VM, I created a virtual hard drive. There's nothing on it, so there's no operating system already on the machine. So it's asking us, what do we want to do? Erase the disk and install Linux? Yes, that's what I'm going to do. If I wanted to, I could manually partition the disk. I could choose something else and go through manual partitioning. I'm just going to let Linux Lite have the whole disk and do its automatic partitioning. Click Install now. Alright. Right, changes to the disk. So basically this is just telling us a little bit about the partition scheme, and it's a warning that it's about to format the drive and write to the disk. Alright, time zone. It has correctly chosen the central time zone in the US for me. That's correct. Alright, we need to create a username. I'm going to create the username DT. Then we need to create a strong and secure password for the user DT. Alright. Do we want to log in automatically, or do we want to require a password to log in? By default, require a password to log in is ticked on. I'm going to leave that ticked on. I like being asked for a password. And click Continue. And that should be all we need to enter as far as any kind of typing we have to do. The next is just the installation itself. This portion of the install usually takes between 5 and 10 minutes to complete. I'm going to pause the video. I'll be back once the installation is done. Alright, and the installation has completed. That really just took a few minutes, maybe 5-6 minutes. It was very fast, the install time. Anytime you install a new operating system, you always have to reboot the machine. That's what I'm going to do right now. And I am booting up my freshly installed Linux Lite 4.0. Let's see how long boot up time takes here. Very fast. Very fast. Just a few seconds. From the time I clicked restart the VM to getting the login manager here, the Lite DM login manager, was very fast. Certainly no more than 10 seconds. Maybe as fast as 5 seconds. I don't know. Alright. Welcome to Linux Lite. Okay, we've got our greeter again. Now what we don't have is the Virtualbox guest editions working out of the box. Let me take a minute and see if I can get those installed. I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got the Virtualbox guest editions installed so I can have a full resolution here. I've got a 1920 by 1080 resolution now rather than that really small 1024 pixel wide resolution. This works a lot better for the review, having a big resolution. Alright, so we have our greeter here. Welcome to Linux Lite. Linux Lite is free for everyone to use and share and suitable for people who are new to Linux and for people who want a lightweight environment that is fully functional, yada yada yada. Alright, now some of the stuff we have in our little greeter here. Start here. Install updates, install drivers, set a restore point, install language support. So let me click install updates. Are there any updates to install? We asked the installer to do an update. So I'm not sure if there's really going to be anything to update here or not. It's syncing the repos. I also noted there were a couple of PPAs that it was syncing to as well. So there are some things installed, I guess, from PPAs here in Linux Lite. Okay. List of available updates. It looks like just a couple of things. Netcat, Python, Apport, DKMS. Yeah, we'll go ahead and run the update. Hopefully this just takes a second. I actually wasn't expecting anything to be available for an update since this was just released yesterday, and I also clicked in the installer download updates while installing, but apparently there's still a couple of packages that can be updated. Alright, so that wasn't too bad. Alright, so let's quit that. And how do I get back to the beginning of the greeter? Okay, you click the little home icon and it gets us back to the main page of the greeter. Okay, install updates, install drivers. If I click install drivers, I'm assuming this is going to launch the utility to install our third-party video drivers, Wi-Fi drivers, that sort of thing. But it took me back to install updates. Oh, I've got to scroll down a little bit. Install drivers. Yeah, and this is the standard Ubuntu additional driver utility. It's got additional drivers. It's out there searching the internet for your proprietary, NVIDIA drivers and your Wi-Fi drivers. I'm in Virtualbox today, so it's looking for the Virtualbox guest editions. I've already got them though, so I don't need to mess with that. We also have the option of setting a restore point. I'm assuming this is backup and restore with something like time shift. Let's see. It's asking for a password. Let me give it my administrator password. Yeah, and this is time shift. Are we going to use rsync or are we going to use butterfs? I'm sure that the file system on here is not butterfs, so we need to do rsync. Pretty sure they're using the extended 4 file system. If I click rsync and then click next, it's estimating the system size. Now I don't have a lot of room as far as hard disk space on this VM, so I probably shouldn't be doing this in a VM. But it's going to set up a restore point here. Anyway, let me go ahead and close that out. I'm not going to go through the trouble of actually saving that snapshot, but it's going to take a snapshot of the system and save it. So if we ever need to restore the system later, we have a restore point. Also under start here, there was install language support. Don't need that. Support, online support, help manual, forums, hardware database. Very cool. Contribute code, donate money, shop. I guess they have items for sale, merchandise that help support the project, and then links to their social media accounts. Now, by default, this greeter launches every time you start Linux Lite, but you can tick this off right here. Close it, and you'll never see it again. Because really, after you see it that one time, you really don't need that thing to launch every single time you launch Linux Lite. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go through the menu, and let's check out all the applications installed by default in Linux Lite 4.0. Alright, so we're going to open up the XFCE menu here, and we're going by category. Let's start with accessories here. We have our application finder. We have our archive manager. This is for zip, unzip, tar, gz, xz, backups. Backups should be the time shift. No, it's not. This is DIASPORA. So they have time shift installed on the system. It looks like they also have DIASPORA installed on the system, which is very similar. You use it to create backup and restore points. Alright, also under accessories, we have calculator. We have file search. That should be the Catfish file search utility, standard file search utility in XFCE, and it is. The search database is more than 7 days old. Update now. I'm not going to bother, but you should update it if you actually want to search your system, search for a file. Alright. Under accessories, we have fonts. We have our home folder. I'm assuming this is the Thunar file manager here. It is Thunar 1.6.15. Thunar is a fast and easy to use file manager for the XFCE desktop environment. Really cool. Really nice, lightweight file manager. You can really tell the difference between something like Thunar and something like Nautilus, which is the standard file manager in GNOME, by opening up a folder that has thousands of items in it. Say, like your user bin folder. Open up /user/bin with Nautilus, then open up /user/bin with Thunar, and you will be amazed at how much faster things load in Thunar compared to something like Nautilus. Alright, also under accessories, we have our screenshot utility, and we have our text editor. See what plain text editor they're using. They're using LeafPad, okay, which is the standard text editor, I believe, in LXDE. Mousepad is the standard text editor in XFCE, but I guess they're choosing LeafPad over Mousepad. Okay, LeafPad 0.8.18.1, GTK-based simple text editor. I like LeafPad. It's a nice text editor, a plain text editor. I mean, they all function the same. Under graphics, we have GIMP. GIMP, the GNU Image Manipulation Program. And they are using the very latest version of GIMP, GIMP 2.10. Very cool. This was pretty big news recently, the release of GIMP 2.10, because GIMP can go years in between major releases, and the 2.10 release was a major release for GIMP. Right. Under graphics, we also have our image viewer, and we have our scanner for scanning documents. Let's see what scanner utility they're using. Simple Scan. Okay. Also, under Internet, we have Firefox. Firefox is our default web browser in Linux Lite 4.0. And if it is similar to the Ubuntu 18.04 releases, this should be Firefox Quantum 60. It is Firefox 60.0.1. And actually, Firefox loaded reasonably fast in Linux Lite, and it closed almost instantly. Firefox can be a little sluggish sometimes in certain desktop environments in these VMs, but that actually was pretty quick. Network connections is also listed under Internet. I'm using a wired connection. Let's see. Also under Internet, we have support. Get support online for Linux Lite. Let me launch that. Does it open our web browser? Maybe take us to the Linux Lite support forums? It does. Very cool. I like that. I like that they have that bookmarked and ready to go in case you guys have any problems with, installing Linux Lite, or you have something break on you down the road. They've already got that support link here. Thunderbird is our email client. Under multimedia, we have our CD DVD burner. Now, for new users, it's nice that they name these apps, what they are, like CD burner, text editor, or what have you. But I kind of would like to know what CD burner they're actually using. Instead of just calling it CD burner, it would be great if they actually put the name of the program in the menu. XFburn 0.5.5. So they're using XFburn, which is a standard XFCE utility. Also under multimedia, we have VLC installed by default out of the box. Awesome. Pretty much every Linux distribution should install VLC as their media player. Many don't, because VLC, when you install it, you do need to install all the proprietary multimedia codecs to really get the full power of VLC. Alright, multimedia, we have our volume control. This should be the Pulse Audio volume control. It is. And this is where you would go to configure things like your input devices, things like your webcam, microphone, that sort of thing. Under Office, we have document, presentation, spreadsheet. So we have 3 of the LibreOffice programs. So this would be LibreOffice Writer, LibreOffice Impress, and LibreOffice Calc. A PDF Viewer. Again, we don't actually know what PDF Viewer it is. It's just called PDF Viewer. Let me open it and see if we can figure out what the program actually is. Is there no about? And it just says recent documents. I'm not sure which PDF viewer that is. Under System, we have Install Remove Software. Now this should be one of the standard Ubuntu utilities here. And it is. It's Synaptic Package Manager. Synaptic Package Manager is found in Debian and a lot of Debian-based distros, and Ubuntu and a lot of Ubuntu-based distros. It's basically our graphical package manager, our GUI package manager. If you want to, you can do a search by file name. If you know the program name that you want to install, say I wanted to install something like HTOP, assuming HTOP's not already installed by default here. It is actually. It's got a checkbox next to it, so it's already on the system, but if it wasn't, I would right-click on it, and I would choose Mark for Installation, and then click up here to apply, and it would begin installing HTOP. Alright, also under System, we have the NTFS configuration tool. We have our Partition Editor. This probably is gparted. It is. I'll go ahead and give it a root password to open gparted. This is not something you normally play around in, the Partition Editor. This is included because if you were using Linux Lite as a live USB stick, you really need something like gparted, you know, for system rescue. Alright, what is this? Oh, it mounted our Virtualbox Guest Edition. Okay, also under System, we have our printers, we have Resource Usage, which is our system monitor. It doesn't tell us which system monitor it is. It is HTOP. Okay. Yeah, I don't like the naming in the menu. I really wish they would change those to the actual name of the program, but this is HTOP. This is good, though. Let's take a look at system resources here. So I gave this machine 2 cores of my CPU. It is using 1% of the CPU, very light on CPU usage. RAM, it is using 425 megs of RAM. That is pretty light on RAM too, considering we've been opening a lot of programs in the last couple of minutes. 425 megs is not bad. That's pretty standard for XFCE. Actually, it might be a little lighter than some XFCE distros. Alright, also under System, we have System Information. This just tells you a little bit about your hardware, your machine. So we're running Linux Lite 4.0. It tells you what processor I'm using, how much RAM I'm using, screen resolution, yada, yada, yada. Also under System, we have our System Log. We have our Task Manager. So this is another system monitor. Again, they don't tell us what system monitor this one is either, but this looks like it's the standard XFCE system monitor. So basically, it gives us the same information we just saw in HTOP. Also under System, we have Time Shift, which we've already seen for creating backup and restore points. So we have both Deja Dupe and Time Shift on the system. Not sure why we need 2 different backup restore utilities. Deja Dupe I know is installed by default on Ubuntu. So if that one's already there, I would probably just go with that one. And why install Time Shift on the ISO as well? You got 2 programs. Pick one, get rid of the other. really the same with the system monitors too. Yeah, you got 2 of them. All right, the terminal is the standard XFCE terminal, I'm assuming. Yeah, XFCE 4-terminal is the name of the program. It's the XFCE terminal. I also noticed that they've edited the shell theme here. You see the neat little power line thing here? Let me do a quick uname space -r. We're using Linux kernel 4.15.0-2. Pretty recent release of the Linux kernel. They're on 4.16 now, but Ubuntu 18.04, it released with 4.15. By the way, Ubuntu 18.04 is an LTS release, so it's supported for 5 years. Linux Lite 4.0, being based on Ubuntu 18.04, will also be supported for 5 years, for those that choose to run it that long. I'm going to go back up here to the My Computer category here, and this just opens our file manager at different points within our directory structure: home, documents, downloads. Under settings, we have our standard setting stuff for About Me, accessibility, appearance, Bluetooth, disk, display, drivers. Alright, we have the settings manager. This basically everything in this settings menu is here in the settings manager. And this is just an easier way to show you guys that stuff. I'm going to minimize that and I'll come back to it. Is there a minimize button? Where is the minimize button on here? Is there not a minimize button? I guess I can click the taskbar and minimize it, but that's weird. There is no minimize button. So something strange going on with the theme there. Anyway, I'm going to minimize that. I'm going to right click on the desktop. And we're going to go to desktop settings. I'm going to check out what wallpapers are installed by default here in Linux Lite. Looks like they've got some pretty cool wallpapers. Some nature stuff. Cars, I'm not a car kind of guy. More nature stuff. And a lot of course, Linux Lite themed logos. Pretty cool. The Linux Lite feather in various colors. Actually, that's actually not bad. I kind of like the gray and the blue. That's really cool too. You know what? I might stick with that one. Anyway, they got some beautiful photographs here. I don't know where the photos came from, if they're user submitted, but some of you guys have taken some gorgeous photos here. I mean, that is just a beautiful picture of this wallpaper. Or that's a waterfall, excuse me. Anyway, yeah, I'm just going to leave it on that one. That's really nice. Now, the next thing I want to do, I'm going to go back to desktop settings. So right click on the desktop, go to desktop settings. I do not like icons on my desktop, and I know there is an icon tab for desktop settings. And okay, well, I have like the home icon here. It's already ticked off though, so I don't know why I have it on the desktop. Same thing for the file system, same thing for the trash. The trash is here, but it's not ticked on. If I click it on, I get a second trash, but of course removable devices, that's going to be mounted drives and disks, the Virtualbox guest editions. So that gets rid of that. But all of this, none of that is actually in the desktop settings. So I guess to delete them, I would just select them all and get rid of them. Yeah, I'm not sure why they have those icons on the desktop and they're not able to be clicked on and off in the desktop settings. It doesn't make sense to me, but again, coming at this kind of as a new to Linux Lite user and new to XFCE. I don't use XFCE that often. Alright, I'm going to go to Appearance here in the Settings Manager. See what kind of themes we have here. Might play around with some of the theming options. Let me open up the File Manager so we can see some of the changes that take place. The default theme is Adapta. We also have the option of Adapta Nocto, so it's a little darker theme. I like that. We have Adwaita, which is the standard GTK theme and the GNOME desktop environment. Adwaita Dark, which is a really nice dark theme. Clear Looks, Crux. Most of these are not very attractive. We have a bunch of different XFCE themes here. Most of these are kind of old looking, you know. Think, Windows 2000 kind of. We have XFCE Flat. That's not a bad looking theme, but you know what? I'm just going to go back to Adapta Nocto. I like that one. Can we change the icons? This is a really nice icon set, the Papyrus Adapta, but since I'm using Nocto, the darker theme, really I need the Papyrus Adapta Nocto so I get some light icons against my dark panel. Is there anything else other than the Papyrus icons? No, not really. Edwaita, which is the default icon set in GNOME, which is a hideous icon set. We also have the Humanity icon set, which is the standard orange icon set in Ubuntu. It's okay if you don't mind the orange icons. For certain themes it would work, but I'm going to go with Papyrus Nocto. And that's the one I'm going to stick with, I think. Okay, so we changed our theme. Now when I open the file manager, yeah, so that's the Adapta Nocto theme. It's a dark theme. I'm going to open up the menu, and we have these quick launcher icons here. Let me open up the settings manager again. Alright, let's see. I'm going to go down here to Lite Software. So let's see what kind of software manager they're using here. Would you like to update the software sources? Now, it is recommended to always. Now, I'm not going to bother updating it because I'm not going to install or remove anything. Although it is asking me, what am I trying to do here? Install or remove software? I'll choose install software. But really, I just wanted to open up whatever program this happens to be. Okay, install software. Select the program. Okay, but what is the name of this program? See, I really wish I knew what this was. Maybe the name of the program actually is Linux Lite Software. Anyway, it lists some programs we could install. Is there any way to search for other programs to install? You know what I think this is? I think this is to install like third-party programs that are maybe not in the repos. Things like Skype and Spotify, for example. Play on Linux. I don't know. Some of these are in the Ubuntu repos. I mean, Genie is in the repos, so is Audacity. So I'm not really sure what this list of programs here is. Tor. But I'm assuming this is just an easy way to get some of these very popular programs installed. Dropbox. Dropbox is not going to be in the repos, so that's a good one to have there. Let me quit that. We have Firewall Configuration. If it's Ubuntu-based, it's usually using the uncomplicated firewall called UFW. GUFW Firewall 18.04.0. An uncomplicated way to manage your firewall. I'm not going to set a firewall though. Alright, we have Lite sources. This is our sources list. Well, I didn't type the right root password there. Yeah, loading the Lite repository. So this is an easy way to add and remove repos. And we have Lite tweaks. Alright, not sure what this is, but it's a little tweak, I guess, utility. Select the task you wish to perform, then click the button. So, boot up fix, clear memory, default web browser, display disk usage, kernel installer, kernel remover, whisker menu. Let's see, remove 10 recently used items from the menu. Basically, it's kind of a cleaning up your system, I guess. Getting rid, for example, log archives will remove, all these old archive files that are just taking up space on your disk. So it's kind of a system cleaner. I don't need to do any of that though. On this freshly installed Linux Lite, there shouldn't be any like cache and log files I really need to get rid of that are taking up a lot of space. Anyway, what are my thoughts on Linux Lite 4.0? This very quick install and first look. Love it. The install, it's the Ubuntu install. It always gets an A+. You click OK 3 or 4 times and you're done in under 15 minutes. So the install always gets an A+. The Linux Lite 4.0 desktop with the XFCE desktop environment, A+. Gorgeous out of the box. Very clean, very polished distribution, Linux Lite. I can understand why it is skyrocketing up the distrowatch.com page hit rankings. This is one of those distros that it's getting to the point where when people ask me for a distribution for a new Linux user coming from Windows, Ubuntu has always been my go-to answer because Ubuntu, of course, is by far the most popular Linux distribution. Got a lot of good documentation, a lot of support. You can find answers easily for Ubuntu. But you know what? If I'm going to recommend something that's not mainline Ubuntu, Linux Lite. Linux Lite may be the best Linux distribution out there for new users right now. Anyway, before I go, I do need to do a special thanks to my patrons. I want to thank all my Patreon supporters: AK, Ron, Mr. Neely Pops, John, Brian, Carl, Greg, Carlos, Rob, Matt, Darkwin, Mark, Christian, Jake, Benjamin, Stephen B, Stephen Z, Marcus, Interceptor, Bob, Leor, Omar, Silvio, David, Alex, Bruno, Mike, Daniel, Nick, Eduardo, David, Tony, Michael, and Tabella. You guys are awesome. You guys help make this show possible. Peace, guys.